I am Dr. Noushad Javed, and I am going to present a very important topics in the pharmaceutics. Actually, the topic is pharmaceutical process validation. So, being a faculty of a PHS as a professor, Rama University, so I'm going to present these topics beyond the batches, pharmaceutical process validation. So, how we are going to be transition from the batches to the process validation during the commercial stage. So, the batch process transitioning. The product that manufacturer, the GMP, should meet the definite stability and the viability studies. So what's happened during the different batches of the manufacturer at the GMP sites, the product must meet the stability study. Stability means they should be stable for a very long time, for the duration up to which their shelf life to be. And they should match the viability study. Viability is they have a same viability of the drugs, means the rate and extent of the drugs in the systemic circulation of the blood in the human being should be the same level with the innovator product. So when a company is going to be launch any product which is already existing in the markets, so they will perform the bioequivalence study, means they will match the viability of the product with the innovator company. If this is the first company, which is an innovator company, so they will evaluate all the viability parameters, mean rate and the extent of the drugs in the blood of the human plasma subject and their toxicity study. This is why our medicines are very costly, because it required very extensive type of the study. Second things, the ratio of the manufacturing, the pilot and or the validation ratio of the manufacturing pilot and the validation scales. This scales means at the time of the registration, a company does not require to submit full scale production details to the regulatory authority. In India, it's a CDSCO. In other country like the USA, they call it FDA, Federal Drug Administration. So the ratio of the manufacturing pilot or the validation scales to the full commercial level should be the 1 to 100 scale, 1 to 10 scale. It means if you are going to make 1000 products at the commercial stage in a single batch, so our pilot or the validation batch must have, for 100 it should be around the 10, for 1000 it should be around the 100. And these data we have to submit to the regulatory authority to get the approval for the whole commercial level we are going to make, and we are going to be commercialized in the market. Because the medicines we are going to manufacture, so we have to submit some initial data to the regulatory authority. The registration lot should be the manufacturer using the process and the equipments represented the full scale. So at the time of the registration, before going to a commercial level, we are going to be go for the registration level. So at this level, the equipment and the process must be the same which we are going to be using the later at the commercial level. We cannot able to change anything from the batch level or the validation level to the commercial level. Otherwise, it will be a violation of the law, it will be a violation of the regulation, and it will attract penalty, heavy penalty on the manufacturer. So before going to a manufacturing scale, we have to develop, first we have to develop the palette scale, then we are going to be develop a validation scale. At the validation scale, the numbers of the item to be manufactured in a single batch should be the ratio of 1:10. First thing. Second things, the process we are going to be used in the validation stage, the same process we have to use in the commercial level. Second things. Third things, the equipments through which we are making the products should be the same type and the same version as of we are going to be used or intended to be used at the commercial level. We cannot change these two things, the process and equipments. So the our FDA is CDSCO. FDA is a common terms being used for the Federal Drug Administration. In our country, the synonyms of the FDA is the CDSCO, which is based in the Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. The FDA requirements include the manufacturing at least one registration lot using the actual equipments at the same manufacturing sites. So one more things we are adding here, the site, manufacturing site must be the same as well. Means at the time of you are going to be submit the validation data, so you should have ready at the same manufacturing site at least one batch to be ready to show your products must be matching of the quality, a specific quality. The number of required registration lots is determined based upon. So when we are going to be submit a registration of a new products, so you will require registration based upon where the bulk drugs is manufacturing. The bulk drugs means the active molecules, pharmaceutical ingredients, which is showing the therapeutic impact. So whether you are manufacturing it by yourself or you are procuring from any third party vendors. So based upon that one, you require some registration. Second things, dose strength. For every dose strength, you will require a new registration, a new process, a new equipment's details in the registration certificate so that it's going to be acceptable. Third one is the manufacturing sites. So when you are going to be change the manufacturing sites, either from the Kanpur, if you are going to be shift to the Agra, or you're going to be shift to the Lucknow. So for every manufacturing sites, you must have ready at least one batch with you. So what's the process validation? This is a common terms being used in a FDA or the regulatory guidelines. You cannot test the quality into the product. When we are going to be test the quality of the products, so it's always showing you the wrong information. Wrong information means wrong assurance in terms of the quality, because you only have a few parameters to determine overall quality of whole products. So what we can do, we build quality in a product. It means in every steps you ensure during the manufacturing, you ensure that the quality is being maintained throughout the process. So the final product, when we are going to be ready, so they have matching the actual quality which we are going to be intended to be used in the patients. So this is a very important terms actually. So you cannot rely upon the quality of the product based upon testing few quality parameters at the end of the result final product. Rather, you should have some controls and the measurements during the manufacturing process so that at the end of the time, the final product will be of the good quality. So validation is actually, you have a reproducible quality products. So what's mean of the reproducibility? So it means the two things. First thing is accuracy. Accuracy means something which is closer to their true value. So like this one, you can see that if this is the middle point is 100 and this point is 90, so this all the value is closer to 100. So this is called the accuracy. Accuracy means repeated observation are showing the same value near about the true value. Where the precision, we have a precision value here. You can see the difference between this and this one is being narrow. So they are going to be, if you are going to be repeated in the measurement, all these measurements are closer to each other, whether they are away from the true value or not. So something is being precise means they are reproducible in the nature. Something being accurate means they are closer to accurate value. So what's process validation is? So process validation for a specific, for what? Process validation is for a specific process. Process validation is always a documented evidence. So you must have established documented evidence. You cannot rely upon the oral communication. You must have something written, documented form, and there is a process how you are going to be record these evidences in form of the documents. Why we require the process validation? Because it gives us high degree of assurance about the consistency of the product and the quality characteristics of the product. Consistency means they are consistent in the nature, they are reproducible in the nature, and the quality characteristic we already, when we are going to be intended to develop a product, so we already have some quality characteristics in our mind. So what's properties of the products, or what the quality of the product we should have. So this is always predetermined a specification. Means we already have a specification what are our quality controls beyond which if a products win, so we call it as a fail, or when they are going to be inside, so we call it a pass. So validation programming ensure uniformity of the products, reproducibility, quality. So this is a very important because the medicines is very crucial things. It can save our life and it can lose our life, both. So the final product must have a uniform quality. They must show the same impact, pharmacological impact. It must have a reproducibility as well. Reproducible means all the time the product should be the same. For example, if you are suffering from the diabetes and you are taking a medicines of the metformin 500 mg, which is available in the market in the glassy phase and the carba phase, there was so many brands. So sometimes you find your blood, it's not uniform in the nature. So what happens? Sometimes it's lower your blood glucose level by 20 mg, sometimes it's by the 30 mg, sometimes by the 40 mg, sometimes by the 5 mg. So this is very difficult for the clinician to maintain the dose assigned to you if the product is not in uniform in the nature. And because of this fluctuation, some hypoglycemic events can be occurred, sudden drop in the blood glucose level can be happen, and that can be life-threatening as well. So we are very specific and very concerned about the uniformity of the drugs, what their performance must be uniform in the nature. This is the same things about the reproducibility of the action as well. So they have the same action showing all the time. And the quality. Quality means some things not about the actual dose level, but they have other appearance as well, like they have some strength. They have some dissolution time, means how much time they are going to be dissolved in our stomach. So sometimes we are taking a tablets and it's intended to be released for the full day, 24 hours. So you can assume what going to be happen if the product is not up to the diet quality parameters, and they will dissolve only in 3 to 4 hours. So sudden all the drugs is going to be dumped inside the body. For example, it's hypertension drugs, so there was a sudden drop of the blood pressure. So you are taking them a pill which is going to be affected, going to be lower your blood pressure within a range, and that range is maintained up to the 24 hours because the drugs is slowly releasing from the tablet. But when all the drugs are suddenly going to be released within a short period, what's happened? There was a sudden drop of the blood pressure, and it will cause again life-threatening impacts. Second things, it's a CGMP regulation as well. There is a law being made. The law to confirm the CGMP regulation means there is a law in every country which have a practice, which have a regulation, which have a compliance, which is compulsory to bound to pharmaceutical industry, that you must follow the process validation steps at the time of the registration. Otherwise, you are not going to be allowed making any commercial products to be commercialized in the market. Good business as well. So what's happened if you have a products non-uniform quality? So what's happened? It's going to be affect your business. For example, sometimes a patient is taking a pill, they are round in the shape. Other times it's oval in the shape. Next time they will triangle in the shape. So it will create a bad impact of the products among the patients as well. In the clinician as well, the who is going to be prescribed the drugs as well as patient. So FDA CGMP is for avoiding variability of the products. So there should be the minimum variation into the product to controlling monitored outputs. So the final product should be monitored about their quality and validating the process performance. So you should have your process to match the performance for which you are going to be claimed. The fundamental of the process validation is assurance of the product quality. Methodology is the selection of the quality components and the material. So this is a very important part, the quality components and the material parts in the methodology. Because if you're going to be change the material, even the bulk material or the excipients we are going to be using in the pharmaceutical industry, so you can see the changes in the uniformity. If you are going to be change the instruments, their parts, so there is a change in the reproducibility of the products. The approaches is adequate product and the process design. So the approaches for the making of the process validation is the product and the process should be designed in a scientific and the logical way. The procedure, we use the statistical control, and these control are at the in-process testing during the manufacturing of the processing and the in-product testing when the product is getting ready. So you have these approaches. The systemic approach, this is a very important part of the whole validation part. First things is identifying. So we identify what are the variables, what are the factors which are going to be affect the performance of the final product. Then the measurements, we measure them. So we identify what are those factors, and then we are going to be check how we can measure them, at what parameters we are going to be measure them. If we are going to measure them, so we are then evaluating their impacts, how these changes in the final products or changes in the process are affecting the final quality. When we are going to be evaluate them, so we go for the documentation parts. So we write all these observations in our established documentation records to note down if we change these parameter by this level, so at what impacts are going to be impacted in the final products. When we have all these documentation ready, so we are going to be make changes and re-evaluating those things. Re-evaluation means we slightly change those things and try to optimize the process. After optimizing the process, we again try to see what are process variables still being there. So Dr. Chow have 4 keys. First things to categorize desirable and undesirable attributes. Attributes means properties, characteristics of the products, material and the process. So what are the desirable things? What are the desirable quality or the parameters we would like to see within the product? And what are the properties and the characteristics we don't want in the final product? So first things we should categorize them. Second things, we will survey. So everything must be within a limit. Even the desirable quality, just like we need hardness of the tablets should be the good, but they have a maximum limit. If the hardness is exceeding its limit, so they are not going to be break down within our stomach. If the hardness is very low, so they will fragile in the nature during the transportation stage as well. So we have to survey their limitation, the constraint. Then we are going to identify testing parameters and the controls used for the testing and the measurements. So what are the parameters we are going to be test and how we are going to be measure them? If you are going to identify them, then we go for the establishment of their boundary limit of the key attributes that influence process, performance, quality and the final product. So the recent trends in the transitioning in the pharmaceutical process validations is depend upon the process and the equipment processing. So there was 2 things important the materials is getting validated, and second things about in the process, especially the equipment should be the process should be validated. So this is one of the example of the validation of the existing process. This is taken from the AstraZeneca Pharmaceutical, USA. So they have an existing manufacturing process, they approve the process, then they are going for the validation of the process, then they qualify the equipments and the process, means they are going to be train the person to be used in the equipments, and they will see the equipments are showing the reproducible result all the time. If this found they require the modification of the procedure, they modified them, then they are going to be validate all the things. If they found they are giving the final products of the same reproducible quality, uniform quality, and the matching the quality performance, so it's called the successful. They call it them as implemented and monitored for the final processing. If they are unsuccessful, then again going for the modification of the procedure and the equipments, and this cycle is going to be running all the time unless and until you are going to be successful, so that your commercial batches should be ready. So thank you for this presentation, and I will believe that at the end of this session you will have some outlook and understanding how the pharmaceutical industry is working on the final product registration and acceptance, going from the pilot scale to the validation scales, what the regulatory requirements. Thank you very much.